Last time we spoke about our vision of New Earth and some fundamental characteristics of this New Earth that we want to envision. Today, we will be talking about ourselves as New Earth people, our individual selves as New Earth people. As you can see, we've been evolving very quickly, haven't we? Just picture how you were 10 or 20 years ago and how you are now. I don't know about you, but to me, especially the last, say, 7 or 8, 9 years, it seems to me like almost a new incarnation. It's so different. Lots of change, lots of knowledge, lots of growth, and very quickly. So the truth is that what we think we have become will be further progressing with the increasing vibrations we are encountering now, and the chaos we are enduring. All of this assisting in our transformation. So we can think of it anew and welcome it. Whatever we think of our growth and what we have achieved is just the tip of the iceberg. Many writers have said that the highest vision of what we are capable of seeing ourselves as is but the tiniest bit of what we actually are capable of. So I've decided to help us with this by talking about 2 experiences I've had in my life. The 2 most important ones, the ones who have given me the most insights of my life. In fact, the insights from these experiences have continued to come to me continually for decades, actually. The first one is my awakening experience at the age of 9. I wrote about it briefly in the recent blog post on the website, janicecoyle.org. It is called The Day I Disappeared, and is the first chapter in the memoir I am writing called The Day I Disappeared. I sent you all a link to this article on Sunday. I don't know if you read it or not, but let me just briefly summarize. You can read more of the details if you'd like on the site. When I was 9, my sister and brother and I went to a German summer camp for children. One day I walked up by myself up a hill, as I called it. It was actually mountains, which in the wintertime were ski trails. So I'm walking up this ski trail, and to my right was an opening in the forest. And I decided to go into this circular kind of little field in the forest and lay down among the wildflowers. And when I did that, I began to experience my body expanding to include the fields, then the trees, and up into the sky. My experience was that I became the forest. I became the sky. Then a bursting forth again, and then into the all of everything. This is where it's difficult to describe. I became everything, and was in a place of no time and no space, a bit beyond manifestation. But I had a felt sense that all creation emanated from something I was then at least identified with. But there was no me. There was no Janice. There was no separate body. There was only this oneness pouring out itself to become everything. It's hard to describe. It was much more than that, but words fail here. In my chapter that is on the website and I sent to you, I'm telling the story in the words of my 9-year-old self. But I end with these words. Quote, on a beautiful day in 1955, at a children's summer camp near Trefis, Germany, a 9-year-old girl disappeared and was no more. She left that little something people called Janice and became everything. The second chapter, which I will put on the blog probably in a few days, will tell you what happened after that. But I immediately had two insights immediately when I came back from this. The first one was everything is created for fun. As the years went by, I began to doubt that one. I thought, oh, well, sure, a child is going to say that. Everything is fun. How can suffering be fun? But that was my insight, and it was my insight for years. The second insight is that everything that happens, whenever and any time, is all happening at once. So I had the sense that there's no time, that it's all happening at once. This is what I got from that at the age of 9. So this incident has brought me more and more and more insights as the years have progressed, as you can imagine. But what it gave me, and what it has continued to give me, is a real sense and a certainty of what we really are as sacred points of consciousness, multidimensional beings, at one with everything, and in a very intimate way. Because when I had this experience, one of my hugest beliefs and knowings is that whatever I was and am, everybody has to be, or there's no oneness. So since then, I've read accounts of many people who have experienced had similar experiences. Some briefly for an instant, others for an hour or for a day. Some, like the great healer Joel Goldsmith, could take his consciousness there at will. This being the key he had to his remarkable healing ability. As human beings on this planet, we all have the capacity to go to these levels in consciousness while being embodied. We have this. Our neural systems actually allow and foster this. We have the ability to go up and down the vibrational levels with ease. For example, and we all experience this. For example, we can be in shame, the lowest vibration of all, and suddenly, due to some outside stimulus, we are in joy, one of the highest vibrational emotions. We have the capability to go up and down, not only this way, but into other dimensions in our consciousness. And this is really a special ability we have. I've read many people who've channeled ET races, different Pleiadians or Arcturians or whatever, and they report that some ETs admire this capability of Earth humans to go up and down the scales into other dimensions. Because not every intelligent being in the cosmos, they report, has this ability while being embodied. And so we and others that have this ability are greatly valued because of it. So it really is something that we can do. We have come here very gifted. We've born into this planet extremely gifted, multidimensional points of consciousness, in tune with all of everything and the abilities of the all. We can touch the all-knowing, the seers, the people who see the future and the past, the people who see from far away. We can be all present everywhere. We can touch the all power. We can suddenly have such power that a woman can lift a car to save her children, and things like that we've read about. We have sudden inspirations. We have sudden intuitions. These are multidimensional abilities that we all have. So in a moment of grace when I was 9, I can't happen to come in direct experience of what we are and some of our abilities. And even at that age, I knew that we all have this. We have to all have this. So the second most insightful experience of my life was a so-called dream I had one night of being taken to another place I now believe was a Pleiadian starship. There continue to be insights coming from this experience also. In fact, new ones every week almost. I've written up a brief summary of this experience in another article on the website titled My Year-Long Trip to Elsewhere. I sent that on Sunday to you also. If you'd like to read, you have some details. But there's so much I could say here about that experience. In the interest of time, I'm going to use that experience tonight to help us understand what we really are and what we're capable of and how we're regarded. Because I met a lot of people there, and I believe they lived on the fifth dimension, which many people believe we're going into, which is simply another higher vibrational state. So what I'm going to do is quote certain pieces of this, and then I'll comment and expand on it. So I'll start. In 1987, a dream appeared. I was in an elevator with a beautiful woman dressed in an iridescent pastel tweed suit, reminding me of the Coco Chanel suits with a straight skirt and a simple jacket. She was short, my height, with curly amber hair, a heart-shaped face, and hazel eyes that shined amusement. I would later name her the French lady, because in that whole year with her, she always wore the same Coco Chanel-like suit. I never learned her name, or maybe I just didn't remember it when I came out of that experience. But later I did name her that. Her first words to me in this elevator, "You need help." And interestingly, although she was very firm about that, her eyes seemed to declare this as the most fun fact in the universe. Her delight in everything would become catching, and I learned in that year to laugh at myself, all with accepting self-love, or almost. I was not as accomplished as she by millions of years, I thought. Her kindly laughter could banish any anxiety or sense of limits. She was all about fun. And remember I said that my first insight on that first experience was that as a child was that all creation was for fun. The French lady seemed to know that all the time because everything was fun to her. Anyway, she took me to a kind of hangar, then into this domed enclosure with walls of a kind of a metal-like substance and pastel lighting coming from these walls. I knew I was in another world. I didn't know much about ET's motherships at that time. I later was to read about them, and they were so similar to some of the scenes here that I now believe that I was on a mothership, a Pleiadian mothership. She, by the way, she pressed the button to number 5 in this elevator, which leads me to believe, and that was the evidence to me, that we were going into the fifth dimension. So, and in this experience, I encountered again what it was like to be in the midst of bliss, in the midst of love. I met many colleagues of the French lady during that year, other teachers, engineers, the leader of the whole community. They clearly loved what they did and had so much joy, and each in their own unique way showed the joy. The French lady was very outgoing, very vivacious, practical, businesslike, with a great sense of humor and an infectious laugh. The characteristic I most remember about her, actually. She had the kind of laugh that dispelled all fear, all anxiety. Why laughter? Why would laughter do this? In our next meeting, we're going to talk about the different emotions and the vibration of the different emotions. The emotion of joy is very high vibration. The emotion of fear, anxiety is quite low. So in the presence of a very high vibrational emotion of joy, fear can't sustain. So it gives way to the presence of joy. It can't really do anything else. So one of the characteristics of these 5D people was clearly joy, that and unconditional love. But here's the thing, each one of them expressed it in their own particular way. Some were quieter and more introspective than the French lady. Some were of other races. I saw brown people, green people, almost stark white people, and everything in between. And they were all different shapes and sizes. Clearly a lot of different races, probably from different planets or something. They were all different, but they all loved each other. And in that difference, they expressed similar things in a different way. Remember I said that the French lady was dressed in this iridescent pastel-colored suit? The pastel color changed with the changing light. I later wondered if the whole vision was of ethereal people, an ethereal dream that seemed real and physicalized when I woke up and my mind put colors and clothes on it. But there was one thing that I wondered about. The French lady wore very heavy leather shoes. Not what we would do here if we wore that kind of an elegant suit. And it took me years to figure out that. I knew that everything about her was a lesson to me. Everything about her, everything she said was a lesson to me. She was like my mentor and teacher. I was to later put together the shoes and You Need Help and figure it out. But back to the article for a minute first. Quote, the French lady told me she would be my personal mentor. A small Spartan room appeared, furnished only with a little chest and a cot, but not just any cot. This one bent to shape the body in soft embrace. She showed me how to use my mind to make the back wall, lit or dark, transparent or solid. When transparent, I gazed out to see the passing galaxy. This is why I believe it was a starship. One of you last time spoke about technology. There's so much technology I could talk to you about on this ship, but just to get back to this wall responded to my intent and my thought, right? That's actually not too far from where we are now. Our iPads and laptops have touchpads that respond to the electrical energy coming out from our bodies. And not just our fingers. Experiment, you'll find you can do it with your toes, your elbow, your tongue if it's not too wet, or any part of your body. But if you pick up a stick, you can touch and touch and touch all you want. It's not getting your own personal electricity through that stick, so it's not going to work. So we can invent a machine that takes the energy emanating from our thoughts and our intentions, projecting out from us, and understands it and obeys it. So what does this say about our thoughts going out and our intention going out? We've been talking about this, but this is proof that it can be used by a machine. And if it can be used by a machine, it can be felt subconsciously or otherwise by people, animals, and everyone. We are very powerful with our thoughts and our intentions. Animals respond to this. Dogs particularly, you might have known about them. So watch our thoughts. But this is not far off with us to have machines. I think that we're kind of almost there, actually. Be sensitive and to the thoughts we're putting out. We'll get there, and it'll be like thought transference communication with each other too. So back to the article. I would be there for an Earth year of experiences, she said, and she assured me that it wouldn't matter back home, as only a few Virginia minutes would pass. She immediately began the lessons that have helped my obvious need. But what exactly was that need? I didn't know. So about that, the year thing. As you all might know, the timelines of other dimensions are different than ours. 1,000 years of experiences can take only a few minutes of Earth time, so to speak. We have many examples of this with the near-death experiencers and many people. So as we said before, in my first awakening experience at the age of 9, and here's another aspect of this, came into the insight that everything is happening at once and there is no time. Just to add to confusion here. Right? So back to the article. I was put in classes with other human beings, mostly young adults and some children, all wearing their Earth race bodies, dressed in the traditions of their cultures on Earth, and they were a colorful lot. One young boy, maybe 15 years old, stood out. He was tall, husky, Asian, with the aura of strength and confident leadership. His dark eyes had a piercing but kind way about them. I sensed an Earth destiny of power and influence, a paradigm transformer, I thought. Any anxious thoughts about Earth's struggles vanished in his presence. So you will note that the Asian boy's effect on me, the calming removal of anxiety, was the same effect the French lady's laughter had. So this boy's presence had the same effect on me, but it was done in a different way. Not with the charming laughter, but with his own personality and presence. The same effect, though. Interesting. The classes were conducted by historians, psychologists, and scientists, all talking about the energy dynamics of Earth and how to navigate the strong polarities of the third dimension. They spoke of the current matrix created by the strong intentions and thoughts by some, and the subconscious acquiescence of the many. Much of what they spoke about I did not then understand. So much so, I wondered why I was there. They mentioned the strong polarities of this vibration we are in. And since then I've learned we are in a realm of very good and very bad, very kind and very hateful, much love and much fear. The polarities themselves are very opposite here and extreme. We can look out and see this. It is part of this transformation that these come to light, these very extreme polarities. But in the higher dimensions, there are polarities, I was told, in these classes, but they just aren't as extreme as they are what we are experiencing now. Here again, though, since they're extreme, and getting more extreme prior to transformation, when we put out love, it's stronger and has a stronger effect against the hate or the fear. So they taught me this, and this is another reason I put forth to you that this is such an incredible time to be doing what we're doing, to be watching our thoughts, to be projecting love, to be projecting joy and all of that. Back to the article, quote, in contrast to this boy, the French lady's lesson to these classes, the French lady's lessons were very simple and mostly consisted of practice in conscious focus and observation, similar to mindfulness. Though simple, I failed almost all her assignments. Once she sent me on a trip to another place where lessons were taught. I traveled on a train-like conveyance with a window view of the quick-passing fields, forests, and lakes. At the other school, I came to a classroom and made the intention to observe every little thing. I put my mind on alert, determined to finally succeed. By the way, I've read about motherships, And see, I was put on a train and I saw fields and flowers and all of that. I've read that these motherships are hundreds of miles in diameter, and they're self-contained living environments. And so it's very plausible I would be put on a train or some kind of conveyance to another part of that mothership to attend another class and see something else. Anyway, she wanted me to observe everything and come back and tell her everything that I focused on and observed. To cut this short, I failed it miserably. I could not tell her the name, the colors of the teacher's eyes. I couldn't tell her what he wore. I couldn't tell her about the room. I focused on things beyond the physical. I focused on what they were talking about, what they were teaching, what the answers were, and things like that. Or she wanted me to come down and be physicalized a little bit more. So I was beginning to learn why the French lady thought I needed help. The more I thought about this years later. I was very absent-minded from childhood, possibly because of my awakening experience. I rejected this realm, preferring that place of no time, no manifestation. It was bliss, and I wanted back. But I was not as functional here as I could be, and in that condition, not as much use either. I was not fully into this incarnation. That became, over the years, very clear, as I sometimes would shake myself to be here, at least fully enough to function. And I think that might have happened when I had that experience on the mountain. So her mindfulness exercises are meant to bring me into a better alignment with my etheric, astral, and physical bodies and the material chakras here. In other words, be more grounded is what I needed help with. So that was the clue to the heavy brown boots. She was grounded. Her boots were the color of the earth and the soil. She was very centered. And I came to realize just in the last few years, that was the reason for her incredible presence. Like the Asian boy, both of them were very grounded, and that gave them power and energy. And it was a long time before I would accept this, as it seemed not very spiritual to me. But I've begun to see this now as embodied spirit. And how much do we need that? It's very effective, very powerful to ground spirit in our bodies and in the material realm. It's powerful in manifesting, and it's powerful in actually being anything here, for that matter. Everyone there in their own way, all the different races, looking back on it, I see had a grounded presence. But again, each in a different way. For example, the French lady sent me a class to test my observation skills. And let me quote here. In the classroom were many human students and a handsome 40-ish human man teaching social studies, including earth politics and customs. He seemed to be a kindness itself as he lectured and showed us holographic pictures of activities and meetings on Earth. I was intrigued and really focused to be present and remember everything. I was confident my observations would pass the test. As I said, I didn't pass the test. But I want to hear describe this teacher. He was very different from the French lady. He was quiet, soft-spoken, gentle, intellectual, and very, very kind. His whole style was seeming the opposite of her outgoing and constant humor. But his effect, again, was similar. In his presence, I had no stress and felt wholly accepted. He had confidence and integrity that was very effective. But again, differently expressed than hers. And yet again, I have to say, the same effect, but in a different way. Because his energy was different. His personality was different. Back to the article. After many other tests, she informed me it was time to leave and go back to Virginia. Her second to last test was at a reception of dignitaries. I assumed they were they were other administrators and teachers. All were beautiful and full of light, wearing different kinds of robes and different colors and all of that. They were of different races. They all knew and liked each other. And they liked the French lady. They were all friends. It was very active. It was a very social thing. They were celebrating something. I don't know what. I was offered a delicious pink liquid served in a triangular-shaped shallow cup with a wide opening. My assignment was to mix and mingle with everyone while not spilling a drop from my cup. I thought, piece of cake. This is the easiest one of all. Well, I failed that one too, and miserably. As always, she and I laughed and laughed. She could be so delightful, entertained by anything, whether it was good or bad. She saw it all as the same fun. Her laugh was full of amused acceptance. She seemed far more advanced than I, and so in every way. But she always regarded me and looked at me with a kind of reverent attention, a kind of special admiration even. I kind of still don't understand. I kind of do actually, but I didn't for a long time. My article was written 3 years ago. And since then, I've come to understand why she looked at me and everyone else with a kind of awe, an actual kind of awe. And this is what I've come to, and this is what I really believe, and this is what the experience on the mountain has given me. We are all unique. In our embodied individuality, we all have our own perspectives, our own unique voices, our own slice of the all-consciousness, while at the same time being one with the all. Scientists have found no two snowflakes that are exactly alike. It seems like nature, the cosmos, which is very efficient, does not duplicate experiences in consciousness or manifestations. No leaf is exactly alike. So as to uniqueness, I know this myself by being an identical twin. My sister Janet and I look so much alike, people couldn't tell us apart. As identical twins, we had the same genetic makeup. We grew up in the same house, had the same parents, and went to the same schools, occupying the same classrooms. We were in private schools. But inside, we were very different. I've written about this in another article on the website site titled Growing Up Identical, if you'd like to hear about it, read about it. A few years after this dream with the French lady, I was observing my sister and my twin sister, and suddenly it came to my mind, God is perfecting another quality in her, precious and different from mine. The French lady obviously had this insight, and so did everybody else there. I realize now that I visited a place where differences in perspective, in energies, in personalities, in talents were not only welcome, but revered as sources of inspiration and consciousness expansion. If you just think about that, you'll see that that's true. These people there were engineers, there were artists, there were teachers, there were researchers, there were leaders. All were loved and cherished. They all dressed differently. They all looked differently. They were all different skin colors. Here we want everybody to be the same. We have to grow up and we have to go to these schools and we have to have a 4-bedroom house with a 2-car garage and we have to do this and we have to do that. We have to wear this style of clothes now and that kind of style. We have to, and if we see somebody some ladies, for example, that's being very creative with her sense of, say, color, and part of her hair is yellow and part of her hair is purple, we draw all kinds of conclusions and we don't want to be around her. We don't like that. She doesn't look like us. And we put all characteristics on her that have nothing to do with the color of her hair, don't we? But there on that ship, it was drastically different. Everybody was accepted. Everybody embodied creativity, of style, of personality, of talent, of appearance, of clothes, of everything. And it was celebrated. It wasn't made up fun of, it was celebrated. I had another dream years later. I was in outer space and I saw many vortexes of energy. They were in colors and they were in tones and just different ones, these different vortexes of energy, light and color kind of energy, each of them a bit different. And as I looked around at these various vortexes of energy, I immediately recognized one of these as my brother Bill, who had died many years before. How did I know it was him? I was very certain it was him by the distinct energy of that vortex, the kind of tone, it's hard to describe, the kind of tone that was so like him. I was absolutely certain it was him. It must be then that each of us has our souls or have its own special tone, its own special eternal energy. Like a single tone in a universal symphony, while at the same time being one with the entire symphony, if that makes any sense. So let me quickly read the rest of the article. The next day she brought me to a hangar housing many craft. Before leaving, she said with a laugh, "Okay, one more test." She pointed to holographic pictures in the air. I saw a large city on Earth. I saw falling buildings, much commotion and loss of life. I was horrified. "How can I help this?" I said to her. "What should I do? Tell me, what am I supposed to do?" She laughed. A laugh more delightful than any she had done so far. And she simply said, "Something." That's all she said. And what was the meaning of that answer, something? Years later, I finally figured it out. That what she meant is simply do something. Whatever you do will lead to experiences in consciousness, will lead to adventures that wisen us, temper us, expand our knowing, and so forth. So she would say, do something, do anything, but something, for fun, for experiences in consciousness. So here we are now in this chaotic world, and things are falling apart, things are building also, and here we are. What do we do? From my experience with the French lady and her colleagues, the higher vibrational way, the new earth way, would be to remain grounded in our own unique presence. Be mindful but detached. Remember who we are beyond it all. Then do what comes to us to do. What comes from that higher discernment and wisdom we all have. And then when we act with integrity and purpose, and having the intention that whatever we do will be for the highest good of all. I believe that I met fifth dimensional people, and this is what they taught. Back to the article again. When I woke up from this experience, I was home in Vienna, Virginia, on a normal workday. It felt like I had been away a year. I had to remember what to do and where things were that I needed. And later at the office, my assistant had to remind me what I had said to a client yesterday and what needed to be said today. The French lady's presence was with me for over a year back here on Earth. I could call to her when in confusion about things, and I would immediately feel her presence. On one occasion, I suddenly realized a colleague was emotionally manipulating me, or attempting to. What should I do? How do I cure this? I asked, immediately feeling her presence. There, that laugh again. She said, do nothing. Just see it clearly and take it into consideration in your plans. That was the best advice anybody has ever given me, and so practical. It's not my mission to change anything or anyone necessarily. The universe takes care of that. I just need to see things clearly and use this clarity of discernment to plan my own journey and what to do best. For example, if I owned a store, I would not assign an alcoholic to stock and take care of my wine cellar. I would give him another job. My intent in this talk is to share with you the glimpse I was given of what it's like to be a higher vibrational person, a new earth person. Here are the main characteristics that I remember. They were joyful and saw experiences in consciousness as fun adventures. They were unconditionally loving and respectful of each other. They welcomed, even cherished differences in perspective and knew these differences expanded their own consciousness. They were very centered and grounded and lived in the now. They had incredible self-knowledge. They knew their own energy. They knew what their own talents and interests were. They loved to express them and use these talents to benefit others in a very cooperative way. So here we are now in this meeting, coming to some vision of ourselves as New Earth people. The French lady seems to be saying, we do it now in our own way. Each of us with our own perspectives, each with our own gifts, our own tone in the New Earth Symphony. She stressed that any creation I would make, or the collective on Earth would make, will be necessarily different than any other creation in any other time in the universe. Remember, nothing is duplicated. Our creation, whatever it's going to be, will be unique, as we are individually unique in time and space. So, what is the uniqueness in your essence? What are your gifts? What special kind of perspective do you bring to the all-consciousness? Contact that special tone within you, that unique energy, that unique talent, that unique perspective. What are your interests? What brings you joy? The answer to these questions will bring a vision of yourself, of your eternal ideal self. And it is hoped that the glimpse you will get this evening is what you will become as a New Earth person.